So, we'll continue today with a general confession and the different kinds of things that we could have done in this life or previous lives. If I were my teacher Zopa Rinpoche, I would start this out by telling you about all the results of doing these actions. The 8 cold hells, the 8 hot wells, the 4 I'd forget what the term, changing hells, the different kinds of pretas, the kinds of animals. We'd go into a whole Buddhist version of fire and brimstone. Okay, and then get to this topic. That's not what I'm going to do, because I have a feeling, and I want to ask you, do you have some resistance about long talks about being born in the lower realms? Who has resistance to hearing about that? Okay, who doesn't have resistance? Okay. Of those who don't have resistance, how many of you grew up in a religion where you heard a lot about the lower realms? Oh, interesting. Almost all of you. And of those of you who do have resistance, how many of you grew up in religions that talked about these realms? Okay. So, I asked that because as we've been talking about, so often we're conditioned by what we've heard in the past. And for some people, hearing about all the different realms, because they heard it when they were a child, and then depending upon who said it and how it was said to them, some people, even as kids, heard it and went, no! And other people, as kids, heard it and said, I don't like it, but yeah, it's true. I don't think anybody said, it's true and I like it. Yeah. But what I'm pointing out is how we come to Buddhism with not only ideas from previous lives, but also this life, depending upon what we've heard, how we were schooled, and so on. And so, there's a bunch of people sitting in this room, and somebody gives that kind of talk, and everybody's going to have a very, very different response to it. Yeah. And some people with a lot of resistance, and some people with hardly any resistance. Of those who have resistance, sometimes the resistance is, I just don't believe this stuff. And for other people, the resistance is, yeah, it's true, but I don't want to see the world in this way. It's too scary. I reject it because it's scary. So when we're talking about these different kinds of negative actions in Buddhism, that we purify in our Buddhist practice, you have to pull your mind out of whatever you grew up with. Yeah, and try not to see everything through that lens. It's difficult, and we're not usually 100% successful with it, but it's helpful to do that. Yeah, in terms of being born in the animal realm, that seems more plausible, doesn't it? We see animals around us. Yeah, does anybody have a problem with thinking that a human being can be born as an animal? Yeah, that question, people ask that question a lot, How about, do you have a problem with thinking people could be born as as a preta or a hell being. There's one honest person. Thank you. The rest of you? Okay. So what happens when you're in front of a very well-respected master? And like I think I told you, Kyabje Sangha Rinpoche, I wasn't in Italy at this time, but I heard when he gave his first weekend course there, he talked the whole time about the lower realms, because he figured people in the West need to hear this, because that's where they're all going to be reborn unless they do something. Yeah. And many people in the West look at the conversation about the lower realms and say, well, they just say that to make people afraid, and if they make people afraid, they'll be good. And that's what a lot of people say about the Catholic Church teaching these things too. You know, it's fear-based, and fear is a good way to control people and make them be good. Kind of like, you know, when you're a little kid, if you were threatened with getting spanked or screamed at, you did what you were supposed to do, not because you wanted to, not because you thought it was reasonable, not because you thought the person who said it was reasonable, not, you know, not because you thought it was a good thing to do, but because you were afraid. Yeah? And so it's very important, you know, when we're in Buddhism and doing our practice and speaking to others about the Dharma, that we're very clear in our own mind how we think, what we think, and how we feel about this, and can clear away some of the knee-jerk reactions to it. Yeah. But if you've been threatened a lot as a kid, then the knee-jerk doesn't feel like just knee-jerk. It feels like real reality, you know? That's what's going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked before about guilt. And so having that kind of fear hanging over you, that something terrible could happen. Yeah, because you not only did a bad action, you are a bad person. Okay? And think what happens in your mind when you go from a kid being told that action is bad, and then you change it into, therefore I am a bad person. Yeah. And how long have you been carrying around that idea, I'm a bad person? Yeah. We've talked a lot about disparaging ourselves. This is one way that it starts in our mind. Yeah. As we heard this kind of stuff, and we're a kid, and we don't have the ability to assess things very well, and we believe what the adults say, and then we embellish it from this is a bad action to I am a bad person. And then, you know, so much suffering ensues. You know, when we think we're a bad person, then it's like, yeah, we don't feel like we can do anything good in life, and we just walk around like, you know, we're heavy. Maybe not even consciously, but unconsciously, there's this thing inside that says that. Yeah, some people are nodding their heads, some people are kind of looking like. Okay, so this is a lot of this kind of stuff we have to pull out and look at and see previous conditioning and then think about it in terms of how we see life now. Yeah. And what do these kinds of things mean? And in what way am I going to understand them? And in what way am I going to relate to them? Okay. One of my friends who's a Dharma teacher told me that one man came to him one time and said, I really like Buddhism, but I was a Christian, and I'm afraid if I become a Buddhist, I'm going to go to Christian hell. But I'm afraid if I stay as a Christian, I'm going to go to Buddhist hell. Yeah, it sounds funny, but somebody could get that idea. Yeah, and then you're stuck no matter what you do. Okay, so I'm saying all of this as a prelude to continuing on with explaining this prayer. So with the hope that we can really take what the Buddha is saying here, or Ashvagosha, what he's saying, and see it as something that is coming from compassion, not coming from threats. Okay, so to hear about, because here we're confessing all these things, and one part of our mind says, but I didn't do them this life, why should I confess them? And then you hear, well, we could have done this previous life. Yeah, but that wasn't me. Why should I have, experienced the result of what this other idiot did when they did this stuff? I wouldn't do anything like that. Yeah. So we have to see, what is going on in our mind, and what are we just rejecting, kind of in a knee-jerk way because of, previous experience or previous thought about it. Yeah. When you did the discussion group about resistance, yeah, what kind of things were you resistant to? Did anybody say confession prayers? Well, at the beginning, some people were talking about the confession prayer in Vajrasattva, and they had resistance to it. Yeah. But what other kinds of things were you resistant to? Puja. Okay. So what you mean, like when we do Tara or Tsok, or just any kind of chanting, or what?
I think for myself, it's mostly Sog, but it kind of trickles to the other kinds of pujas too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. And what is it that, tell me about your resistance to it.
I think it's mostly that I don't understand exactly what I'm doing and what's going on. The foreign language, it's mostly that.
Most of it we do in English. Is your resistance to the English part or the Tibetan part?
I think both.
Okay, good. Yeah.
The meditation class. The meditation class later.
Oh, that we had one time.
Yes.
Oh.
It was
And you were resistant to it?
Yeah.
Why?
It's scary.
Oh, all your friends are sitting out there meditating with you and you're scared?
Yeah, difficult. It was a difficult scenario.
Yeah.
Like the how you hold the space when things are arising.
Yeah. But you weren't doing it. You were watching other people.
Yes.
And so what was it that frightened you, thinking of you having to do that?
Yes.
Oh, like what to do when people are not acting so politely
Yes.
in class.
Like, how do I react?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a prescribed way to react. Yeah. You have to kind of check what's going on. Okay. Other things that you're resistant to? Oh, everybody else understands the Dharma perfectly and is perfect agreement with it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I would, during the resistance discussion, I notice, even though I've come a long ways and like being more happy that I get to purify, there's still sometimes a feeling in my body of resistance because I associate it with like, oh, I don't want to look at that because it means I'm bad. And even though up here I get it, that it's not true, there's still some lingering stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had a lot of conditioning about that. Yeah.
I have resistance to not the idea, but that the Dharma needs a lot of discipline. And discipline for me is like, I connotate it a lot with pressure from school, from doing something that I don't want. So whenever I feel like I have to have a daily meditation practice and I need to meditate, and when this feeling comes up, then I have a lot of resistance. It's like a double resistance.
Okay. So you feel that the discipline is coming from outside, not it's being forced upon you. It's not something that you choose.
Yeah, so while being here during this day, I realized that in those moments maybe I shouldn't pressure myself to do it then, but contemplate more and to bring this wisdom element into it.
Yeah.
Because I think first comes wisdom and then comes discipline, which the past years have not been in that way, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so often as kids, first comes the discipline, and we don't think of discipline as just a good habit so that we can accomplish what we want. We think of discipline as whomp, 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 scream, yell, scream. Yeah, right? Yeah. Yes, of course we have resistance. Yeah. Yeah, but so it's interesting to look at what does discipline mean to us. Is it something, do we see it as something that comes from outside, attacking us, or bossing us around, or an authority? The authority disciplines you. Yeah, thou shalt not eat potato chips. Yeah. Why not? Because when you eat potato chips, it's bad for your health and it makes lunch very noisy. Yeah, if you haven't noticed how noisy lunch is when there's chips, I can tell you. Yeah. But it's interesting how we connect different things in our mind, Discipline's coming from outside. Just means I have to, I must. And then from there going to, I'm bad if I don't. And from there going to, I'm always bad. I never accept things. To, something's wrong with me from the beginning. To, what is it? Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, think I'll eat some worms. Did they say that in Switzerland when you were a kid? Oh, well, you just learned something American. Yeah, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, think I'll eat some worms. Yeah. Yeah, so one thing just builds on the other, and we get ourselves so tied up in knots. Yeah, and all Ashvagosha is doing is, he he was debating somebody and he lost and he went to the library. He was banished to the library. He pulled a book off the shelf and it prophesized him doing this. And then he said, "Ooh la, oh spiritual mentors, great Vajra holders," da 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 da, because he realized he had blown it. Yeah. And when you realize you've blown it, then you want to purify. When you feel like somebody else is telling you you've blown it, you don't want to purify. Because they don't know who you are and everything I was thinking and why I did it, and they're just putting their trip on me. And I'm perfectly innocent. I did that totally obnoxious action, which was not totally obnoxious. That's just your projection. Yeah. How did I get there? Resistance. Huh? Resistance, yeah. So, that's how our resistance comes out, isn't it? And then we build a whole philosophy about it. Yeah, sometimes when we look at the tenets of the non-Buddhist schools, or even especially with them, but also with some of the Buddhist schools, you can see how people develop philosophies that can explain the things that they have trouble with. Yeah, in a way that makes them emotionally peaceful. Yeah. But that's not always the truth. It's not always the way it is. Okay, so again, my main point in this whole thing is to listen with the mind saying, oh, Ashvagosha is telling me how he blew it, and I need to listen, and because I can learn something from him. Yeah, I'm not somebody above creating negative karma. I've created a lot of it in this life, and who knows what in the world I've done in previous lives. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if I've killed my father, killed my mother in previous lives, but there's a chance that I did, because samsara is beginningless, so lots of times to do lots of things. And I think it's quite helpful to think in that way, because it makes us more humble, and it makes us less critical of other people. Yeah, because one thing I often do is I think if that in previous lives I've acted just like Donald Trump, and messed up a country in that same way. So if I've done that, how, I can't hate him, because whoever I was in the past did that under the influence of ignorance and wrong views and anger and, yeah. And so he's doing that for the probably similar reasons. So I should understand the plight of another sentient being who gets overwhelmed by their afflictions, because I've been overwhelmed in the same way in previous lives. And in this lifetime, I've been overwhelmed by afflictions and done all sorts of things. Not the same way that Donnie has, but, my own variety of afflictions. So again, it for me, it establishes a basis for compassion for somebody else, because we're not any different. Questions, comments so far? Are you resistant to hearing the rest? No. We can talk about pujas later. Yeah. You know what I had resistance to? The first time I was in I was hiking in up to Namche Bazaar. This is 1973, and which example was I going to use about my resistance? Oh, so when we were in Tangboche, there's a big monastery there, and the Lama who was the abbot, I can't remember his name at the moment. Anybody remember it? Who? I can't hear you. Chulche, yeah, it was Chulche Rinpoche. So I don't know why. I was with three friends. They took me into Chulche Rinpoche's room. He was sitting on this big throne. There was an altar, and I just looked at him. And then I looked at all the artwork, all around his room, all these Buddhist statues and paintings. I thought, I had no idea where they took me. We didn't speak the same language. But I was like, nice artwork, this is good. And then all of a sudden, another monk came in the room, and he bowed to Trulshi Rinpoche. And I went, I didn't show it on my face, but inside, like, what? What? What is going on here? Somebody came in and bowed to another human being. This only happened in, medieval ages with the king and queen of England, where people came in and bowed to a human being. What in the world? What's going on here? And I was like, yeah, big resistance. And when I went to my first Dharma course, also, Lama and Rinpoche were in the front of the room. People started bowing. And again, I'm going, this is too weird. Yeah. What do you bow to another human being? Medieval, I had a lot of resistance to it. So you want to know what happened? Yeah. So I just kept observing it, and they were very nice. They said, you don't have to bow if you don't want to. This was at the course. And so I didn't. And then during one Q&A session, somebody explained the meaning of prostrations and what you visualize. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Purify your body, speech, and mind. Yeah, I can relate to that. I feel like I need to do some internal cleaning. So then I tried it. And then I did 111,111. Yeah, and rejoiced. But at the beginning, boy, I just thought it was so weird. I had never seen that. The religion I grew up in, nobody bowed to anybody. Huh? And in America, what do we bow to? Our car, our credit card, yeah, and your iPhone. Those are the three most precious articles, yeah. Maybe your paycheck too. So to kind of, be able to look at some of the places where we're stuck and see how what you said about wisdom, learning some more, and then that releasing the stuckness. Okay, so having said that, let's visualize the merit field in the space in front and ourselves surrounded by all sentient beings, many of whom are very resistant to the Dharma, but all want to be happy and not suffer. And their resistance often gets in the way. Although sometimes resistance can really instigate doing a lot of research and learning a lot and rethinking things. And then that's quite good. So one of the verses in Shantideva's text says something to the effect of, when we are self-centered, the self-centeredness is the source of all of our problems, and cherishing others is the source of all benefit and happiness. Just look at ordinary beings and the Buddhas and the difference between them. You can see that that's true. So take a moment and think about the meaning of that verse in terms of your own experience. How in your life self-centeredness has been involved in all the painful experiences you've gone through, and cherishing others in the happy experiences. And don't just think of this life, but of the karmic causes for happiness and suffering that you've created in the past. That makes his verse make much more sense. Okay? So take a moment and ponder that. So if we want to attain full awakening, having the mind that wants to benefit other sentient beings is really essential. And to have that mind strongly and firmly in our continuum, we have to do something about the mind that interferes with it, which is the self-centered mind. So think of self-centeredness as something that is interfering with your accomplishing your highest aspirations. So move away from the words good and bad to describe it, and see self-centeredness as an interference. It's a hindrance. And in that way, have a determination to put your energy into cherishing others by generating bodhicitta. So it's different to think of, we usually categorize things good and bad. Self-centeredness is bad. I am self-centered, therefore I am bad. Yeah, we so easily go into that. Is that something that makes sense? Can you make a syllogism out of that that's a valid syllogism? Take the subject, me. I am bad because I'm self-centered. Okay? Does that syllogism make any sense? Yeah. Is there agreement between the subject and the predicate, or the subject and the reason, that I am self-centered? Is that true? Yeah. Okay, what about the pervasion? If somebody is self-centered, they're bad. Their pervasion, is that true? Oh, you think it is? Yeah, is it true? It's not true. So one more thought down the drain. Throw away the incorrect thoughts. Okay, when we can do that, then it gives us lots of mental space, because we aren't so, I'm such a bad person, I'm so self-centered, but I can't help being self-centered. How am I ever going to get out of this? Yeah, waste our whole human rebirth spinning around that question. Okay, so I'll read what we've covered so far and then go on. Okay, woe is me, O spiritual mentors, great Vajra holders, and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide in the 10 directions, as well as all the Venerable Sangha, please pay attention to me. So usually I try and hide things, and I don't want anybody to pay attention to me when I'm thinking about all the obnoxious things I've done. But right now, I'm inviting all of you to come and pay attention to me, because I'm being honest about what I've done, and I have sincere regret, and I have no shame in it, and I can talk about it and reveal it openly. That's what you're saying. Okay, I who am named. I don't want to say my name in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I who am named. Yeah. But when it's time to get your graduation diploma, I who am named. We're not afraid to say our names then. Okay, so I who am named, circling in cyclic existence since beginning this time until the present. I'm not trying to hide it. This is the situation I'm in. Overpowered by afflictions such as attachment, hostility, and ignorance, have created the 10 destructive actions by means of body, speech, and mind. Whoa! I got all that out. How did I manage to say that out loud in front of beings I respect? Are they going to judge me? Yeah. Are all those Buddhas going to look at me and go, ugh, this person, I have to guide this one to enlightenment. Look, all the stuff they've done in their previous life. Is that how the Buddhas are going to respond? Give them some credit. I say this, okay, because some years ago at one of our monastic conferences, a newly ordained monk came to talk to me. He was from a different tradition, and he said, I've only been ordained, a short time, but I don't know, I can't seem to really keep the discipline very well. And I think of the Buddha looking at me, going, oh, that monk, totally corrupt, totally degenerate. And the Buddha is just always looking at me, always scolding me. Yeah, my heart went out to this poor monk, If his relationship with the Buddha is like that, yeah, there's no happiness in that. Yeah. He said, I just picture the Buddha up there scolding me all the time. So that's why it's important to think of the Buddhas looking at us with compassion and acceptance, so we don't take that kind of attitude. Yeah. But here we are, we're admitting this. I've been in samsara since beginningless time. Yeah, overwhelmed by attachment, anger, and ignorance. Done all 10 of the 10 destructive actions. And I've done them also, acting them out with my body and speech, as well as planning them and daydreaming about them in my mind. And I'm not trying to hide any of that. It's just there. And if I think of my beginningless lives, yeah, what I said is true. Who knows what I did then? Mm-hmm. Okay, so You know how good it feels? Have you ever been in relationships, or you may be in relationships with people right now that you care about, but you can't speak truthfully to them because they can't handle it? Do you know what that feels like? Yeah. So you always have to watch how you say something, because otherwise that person's going to misunderstand and criticize you. And here, what are we doing? We're saying all of the things we've ever done wrong, and we're not afraid of anybody criticizing us. That's revolutionary, isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? Okay. I've engaged in the 5 heinous actions and the 5 parallel heinous actions. Okay, heinous actions, because when you do them, you in your next, as soon as you die, you go directly to the hell realms, you know, and these are quite negative actions. So we went through them last time. Yeah. So we're not ashamed to admit it. We're just saying, yeah. As disgusting as it sounds and feels to think that I may have acted in that way, samsara is this ocean of mass confusion, and being somebody dominated by afflictions and wisdom, yeah, I probably have done that. And even if I didn't do that, it's still good. It never hurts to confess it. And because if I confess it, then I will make a strong determination not to do that action in the future. And what I really want to do is, it's the power of the strong determination not to do it again. That is something, that is a very powerful purification part of the 4 opponent powers. Yeah, to the degree we regret, that influences the power of the purification, and to the degree to which we say, I won't do that again, and then really try hard not to do that again, yeah, then by making that pledge not to do it again, or at least for a certain period of time, what we're doing is strengthening our ability not to engage in it again. Yeah, because sometimes when we just look at something we've done and say, I am so fed up with that, I will not do it again. Yeah. And then when you're in a situation in which in the past you would do it, you stop yourself. Yeah, because you say, been there, done that, I don't want to do this again. Mm-hmm. So it's very helpful. Because of all the different results of karma, one of the worst, we usually think the worst result of karma is that we're born of negative karma, that the worst result is born in the lower realms. The worst result is the result that is the tendency to do the action again in the future. Because if you're born in the lower realms, that karma ripens, finished, you're okay. If you keep on doing the action again and again, then we keep creating more and more karma to get that same result. Yeah, so that's why having some determination to abandon it, it counteracts that result of karma. Okay. So here we're talking about negative karmas. We should also remember there's virtuous karmas. Yeah. Yeah. So when you do something virtuous, to say, oh, I rejoice. Yeah. And I want to do that again. Instead of, yeah, I managed to get through that, good. Oh, I did one noon day, finished. I'm glad I got through. Oh, let's eat. Instead of, yeah, it was hard. but I did it, and I feel different, and this purification business has an effect. I want to keep on doing this. So I have transgressed the precepts of individual liberation. That's what we did all of last session about, remember? Okay. Contradicted the trainings of bodhisattvas, broken the tantric commitments. Okay, so the trainings of the bodhisattvas, those are the bodhisattva ethical restraints. Okay, 18 root, 46 auxiliary. That's how they were collected in the Tibetan tradition. In the Chinese tradition, many of them are the actual precepts are the same. One of the Asanga's texts, both traditions took some of the precepts from that, but the Chinese, after that, the Chinese and the Tibetans in some way took different lists of precepts to incorporate into their bodhisattva ethical restraints. But they basically come to the same point when you look at them. Yeah. In Japanese Zen, it's really different, because they don't have the pratimoksha precepts. So some of the pratimoksha precepts they include in their version of the bodhisattva precepts. Okay, why don't they have the pratimoksha precepts? Because in 1868, somewhere thereabouts, the Meiji restoration happened, and as had happened in China before, the governments are very afraid of religion, that the religion will become so powerful that people will listen to it instead of to the government. Okay, so they try and restrain the religion, and one good way to do that is if you have celibate monks and nuns who are obviously leaders, to make them get married. Yeah, then their minds are preoccupied with other stuff. Yeah. So that happened. I mean, when the communists took over, that's what happened in all the countries that they took over. Yeah, in some countries worse than others. In Mongolia, they made the monastics disrobe, and I think I explained this before, didn't I? And so many of the monks got married. Now they're trying to revive the monastic tradition, but it's hard when the senior generation are married and the younger generation, those are the ones who are supposed to be training the younger generation. Makes things difficult. Okay, then on top of that, there's the tantric commitments. So there's different, there's the tantric ethical restraints, 14 root vows, and then different bumpos. Some of them say 8. There's different ways of tallying it. So the tantric commitment, and then also the tantric pledges to the 5 regarding the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. Actually, they're not called 5 Dhyani Buddhas. I found out that's a term that somebody made up the last few centuries. They're called the 5 Buddha families. Okay, so we won't go into that. How many of you have the Bodhisattva vows too? Yeah, okay. You take the Bodhisattva vows on the basis of having some version of the Pratimoksha precepts, at minimum the 5 lay precepts. And then tantric ethical restraints are taken on the basis of some kind of Pratimoksha plus the Bodhisattva. Okay. Then, I have been disrespectful to my kind parents, spiritual mentors, spiritual friends, and those following pure paths. Wow, we could have a whole discussion group on that, couldn't we? Yeah. I have been disrespectful to my kind parents. Okay, how have you been disrespectful to your parents?
Lying to them.
Yeah, lying to. Who has not lied to their parents at some time or another? Yeah. Okay, lying to them. What else? How have we been just talking back? Yeah. Get off my case, leave me alone. I'm a grown up at 15. Yeah, speaking badly of them. We did that a lot when we were younger and we were rebelling and they didn't like what we were doing, so we told our friends how rotten they were. Sometimes we even told other relatives. Yeah. What else did we do?
Stole it from them.
Yeah, we stole from them. Just a little bit of money out of mom or dad's wallet. Just a little bit. Yeah, so that I had the money to go to the movies. Just go to the movies. And maybe go some other places that I don't want them to know I'm going. And maybe buy some things that they don't want me to buy. So we just, we stole from them. What else? Yeah, we got angry. And we let them know that we were angry. Yeah. Sometimes we're shy and timid, aren't we? Yeah. Oh, sometimes, even you. Look at that face. Yeah. But we got, who hasn't gotten angry at their parents? Who has gotten angry at their parents? Yeah. Yeah. And then, what do? We let them know. Yeah. So depending on how afraid you are of which kind of punishment, you tailor your way of letting them know your unhappiness accordingly. Yeah. So sometimes you just talk back and just put it all out on them. Yeah. Sometimes you go to your room and slam the door as loud as you can. Sometimes you just go to your room, you close the door, and you refuse to come out. Yeah, you make sure you have some snacks in your room too. Okay. Yeah. How many of us have never done anything our parents told us not to do? You never did anything that your parents told you not to do? No, you did those things. Yeah. Yeah, I could rephrase it. How many of you did things that your parents told you not to do? Yeah. I bet we have some good stories from that one. Yeah. How many have looked back on what you did that your parents told you not to do because you would wind up in a big mess, and somehow you didn't wind up in a big mess, and you're kind of surprised you didn't? Anybody surprised? I mean, I did things I never told my parents because, yeah, Don't you know if you do that, what will happen to you? Yeah. That's not going to happen to me. You're overprotective. Leave me alone. That happens to other people. There's nothing to be afraid of. I didn't say that. I couldn't because I would have gotten it. I just went, okay, and slunk away. But I look back on some of the things I did now. Boy, I could have really gotten in a lot of trouble. Okay. How many of us told our parents after we did something that they told us not to do and realized that we could have gotten in trouble and are grateful that our parents told us not to do it even though we didn't listen to them? After all of that, how many of us went and thanked our parents? Never. Never admit to them that they knew better than we did. Never. Did you understand the question?
There were a lot of words.
Yes, there were a lot of words. Yeah. Okay, the question was, our parents told us, don't do this because it's dangerous. We went and did it anyway. Okay. Later, we look back on what we did and we realize that what our parents told us was true, that it was very dangerous. And we feel very grateful that, in fact, we didn't get hurt or wind up in a mess. But how many of us ever went and told our parents that they were actually right when they told us not to do those things? Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah. No, we didn't tell them. Okay, many different ways to be disrespectful to our kind parents. Okay, we've been disrespectful to our spiritual mentors. Okay, let's hear it. How have you been disrespectful to your spiritual mentors?
Yes, but.
Oh, yes, but. Yeah, what else? What?
No. Not even yes, but just no.
No. Oh, yeah. Yes, but is 2 words. It's too long. No is direct and simple. No, I don't want to do that. I will not do that. Yeah. What else? Yeah. Being angry, avoiding them.
Practicing what they've taught us.
Not practicing what they taught us.
Yes, okay, and then you don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's easier than yes, but. Yeah. It takes a few more words, but it's safer because it looks like you're going to do it, even though you don't do it. Yes. And then out the window.
Then up here.
What? What'd she say?
Pretend not to hear.
Pretend not to hear. Yeah, you do that. I've watched you. The truth comes out. Yeah.
Thinking that they don't know what they're talking about because it disagrees with what you think already.
Yeah.
I know this.
Yeah. Yeah. So they should just shut up and do what you want because they don't know what you're talking about and you know how the world should run. Yeah. What else?
You cook them food they can't eat.
Deliberately. You have to have the deliberately in there. By accident doesn't count. Yeah. But accidentally on purpose. Let's see how renounced they are. What else?
Criticize them.
What?
Criticize
criticize them, yeah. To other people, behind their back, have a good complaining session. That starts out with, but Venerable, you don't understand, right? What else?
Run them down on the path.
What?
Run them down on the path, on the stairways, in the hallways.
Yeah, yeah. So, they're in the middle of going somewhere, and you just stop them and demand their attention. Yeah.
Knock them down, that's what I was thinking, but you're right.
Yeah. Just stop them, but knock them down if you could. What else?
Don't carry their stuff for them. Open doors for them.
Yeah, so kind of missing basic etiquette. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't mean you need to fuss. Yeah, yeah. You don't fuss. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. You should see her in the forest. If I stumble, oh my God. She is Singapore anxiety to the 100th degree. Yeah. So it's a fine thing, to be considerate, but not to fuss. What else?
Don't walk their cat.
What?
Don't show up to walk their cat.
Yeah, don't show up to walk their cat. Actually, just don't show up for whatever. It doesn't matter walking their cat or not. You're supposed to be somewhere and you don't show up. Okay. Then disrespectful to those following pure paths. That means other Dharma, spiritual friends and those following pure paths. So it means Dharma friends and the beings who are highly realized, who have realizations, who are ahead of us on practice. Even they're not Arya, they don't have to be Aryas, but other people who could be role models for us and who we could use as objects of inspiration. We're disrespectful to them. What's going on in that mind? Arrogance. But what's behind that arrogance? Disdain, yeah. Disdain. There's something still, Fear. Fear of what?
Exploitation.
Yeah, that they're going to control you. Yeah. Or it could be fear that somebody else is better than you. And we don't want to, we're jealous of people who are better than us. So we put them down. Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered here, because it's spiritual mentors, spiritual friends, and I know that in other contexts, spiritual friend means spiritual mentor.
Mm.
And that often causes confusion among Westerners who think that the whole path is their spiritual friends.
Friends, yeah.
So I was wondering if you could just comment on that. Like, is this actually a different term in the Tibetan? I've just been confused by this since we, with the terminology we use here, don't usually have the phrase spiritual friend.
Yeah. Well, the literal translation of spiritual friend is geshe. Now, of course, not all geshes are your spiritual friends, and not all spiritual friends are geshes. a lot of people use the term spiritual friend to mean their teacher. Some people use spiritual friend to mean another Dharma companion that they're close to. Some people use the term anybody who walks in the Dharma center. So it's one of those terms you have to see in context how it's being used. Okay, so we've been disrespectful to a lot of living beings. Yeah, and it doesn't help us at all. Yeah, because we can see, when we feel kind of cut off and lonely, we want role models. We want to see people that we admire and to have a feeling that we can become like them. We want a feeling that, wow, the world is a good place and there's good human beings in it. And yet, when with our spiritual friends and those following pure paths, sometimes out of jealousy or fear or whatever, we don't treat them very well. And it becomes, when you really think about it, it becomes so clear how we're the ones who suffer when we do that. Because we're we're making it impossible for our own mind to connect to somebody who could help us. Yeah, because we think we're better, we're jealous of their status, whatever it is. Yeah. Making some sense? Yeah. So it's good, and the reason I'm going through all this so slowly is when you're if you're doing your nunjo and 100,000 of whatever, a lot of them revolve around purification. And so the more we can think about what we want to purify, the things we've done in the past that we regret and we want to really change our behavior from doing that, the more we can be specific, the more sincere we become in our confession and in all four of the opponent powers. Okay, and also because sometimes people say, "Oh, well, I read the thing. I confessed all these things. I did it one time. I'm bored. What am I supposed to do next time I say this prayer?" Well, why did they say that? Because they haven't really thought of what all these things specifically mean. And they haven't related it to their own life.
It's occurred to me that I think for myself, one of the kind of ugliest and sneakiest things underneath not treating spiritual mentors and spiritual friends respectfully has to do with also my own unworthiness, right? Which is a stupid reason for that to come up, but it's one of those underlying things that makes you then not that I have found that makes the disrespect come up because I'm not worthy of actually having respect. It's kind of weird, but I don't think it's unusual.
So you're not worthy of just having the mental factor respect?
Yeah, not worthy of actually being able to be in relationship with such a person. And so to cover up that crummy feeling, you are disrespectful. Like that.
Like,
really sneaky.
Yeah, it's like I really want to be in relationship to them, but I don't feel worthy of doing that, so I'm going to put them down because then I won't want to be in relationship with them. Yes, that very logical way of thinking that ignorance has. Yeah.
To me, that would be connected also to the question, do I have the feeling I can become like my spiritual teacher? You just mentioned that, and for me it's like I find this not such an easy step. Sometimes very often it doesn't seem like that.
What, to think that you can become like them? Yeah.
It just seems so out of reach, kind of, and then this feeling of unworthiness comes in, and the spiral starts.
Yeah, and they're way up somewhere, 15 clouds in the sky. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting how our mind works, because we're making all of that up, aren't we? Yeah, somebody doesn't walk in the room and say, I'm 50, I'm way up there. You should feel afraid of me and bow to me. And if they do that, you should turn around and, go somewhere else.
This may be an offshoot of arrogance, but I think it's quite common, which is to take our teachers for granted, just thinking they'll always be there and they should always teach me. And I think it's an outpouring or an outgrowth of not really thinking about the kindness of our teacher deeply.
Mm-hmm. They're always there. Whenever I want to see them, I should be able to see them. Yeah. They should stop whatever they're doing to answer my questions. Yeah. And when I'm upset, they should cancel the rest of their plans and just pay attention to me.
I think for the coming winter retreat, I'm hoping to process Lama Zopa's passing. What would you advise in terms? I don't want it to come back in a few years and kind of hit me in like a train wreck.
You mean Rinpoche's passing?
Yeah, like to clear up with not just him, but in spiritual mentors in general, with the refuge Nundro.
Yeah.
What would you advise? Because I don't think I have totally digested Rinpoche's passing, even though I'm not crying and throwing myself off the balcony, but I would like to not have it come bite me.
Oh, what about it is biting you?
No, I say I don't want to have anything that's kind of I've pushed back, or I want to be able to clear it this winter. What would you advise in terms of the?
Well, what I think is important, at least what I went to when I heard that he had died. My first thought was, is there anything that I regret in relationship to him that I didn't clear up before he died? Yeah. And so to look and really think about my attitude, my actions, my behavior. And if there's something that I did or said or thought that I didn't clear up with him, that I know I needed to, then to really purify that right now. Yeah. And then when we clear that up, then we still feel connected, and we know in future lives we'll meet our teachers again.
Listening to you talk, I was thinking about when I first started coming here and I first met you and was starting to learn the Dharma and stuff. Kind of like that monk with the view that he had of the Buddha, being disappointed in him all the time, and I think there was some of that, they're waiting to point out what I'm doing wrong. They're constantly evaluating me, and I'm always falling short. Yeah. So
look at the way she parted her hair.
Yeah. So I think there was some that made me shy, fearful, kind of I don't want to come under their criticism.
Yeah. 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 And you can trace that back where that came from. Yeah. And you're a grown-up now, so you can decide what you believe and what you don't.
I noticed during the discussion about authority figures that has shifted. Like I see someone in authority, like my spiritual teacher, as someone who can help me, has some experience, and it's not like I'm putting them up on a pedestal. Oh, they're better than me. They're better than everyone. But just like this reverence, respect, they can help me, and gratitude. So it's really, it's changed a lot.
Good. Good. It's really a drag to go through life being afraid of authority figures. You know, it's not a pleasant feeling at all.
When we do this practice, is it the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are purifying us, or is it our own mind that's purifying itself?
What do you think?
If I go by how the text is written,
No, go tell me what's in your heart.
I think it would be the mind, but that often trips me up, this language that is so externally referenced.
I think the reason it's so external is because we tend to see everything as external. I'm happy because this person did that. I'm upset because this person did that. So I think that so many things are referenced, like, please grant me blessings, please this and that, because it corresponds with our usual way of projecting things outside. But then we have to remember that at the end of all these practices, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas dissolve into us and merge in our own heart. And so there we see, that it's actually coming from our mind. On the other hand, if we really believe that awakening is possible and bodhisattvahood is possible, then there must be these beings in the universe, and they don't just sit around and play ping pong all day. They do something to benefit sentient beings. So, maybe they're doing something to benefit me. I don't always recognize it. Anyway, if I think of them giving me a blessing, I think of, this lightning bolt, and I get the chills, and I cry, and now, I believe. And so we're waiting for that to happen. And only when that happens do we think, oh, now I got a blessing. No. The word, Jeffrey translates the word blessing to mean transform into magnificence. So it's something that is a mutually helpful activity. Something's coming from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, something's coming from us, and through that together, then there's some change in our mind. It doesn't mean transform into magnificence, now I am magnificent. It doesn't mean that. But it's just, there was some change to happen there. Okay? And we don't know who are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. When I came back from my first Dharma course, okay, so some days after getting back, I went out to get donuts. Okay, I was living in Los Angeles at the time. So I went out to get donuts. And I parked the car behind the donut shop. And there was a beggar sitting, in the parking lot on the sidewalk, kind of there. So I went in, and this man did not look good. Something was wrong. Anyway, I went in, I got my donuts, I came back, and I had just come from my first meditation course, so I really admire bodhisattvas. I'm going to try so hard to be a bodhisattva. So this man looks hungry, I'm going to give him one of my donuts. Okay, my first bodhisattva action. Yeah, so I gave him a donut. And I was kind of waiting for him to take a bite and smile. And he had the donut, and he went like this and crumbled it up, and all the crumbs went on the ground. That was a big teaching for me. I thought, I want, it's like one of those things where you go, you don't know who's a manifestation of the Buddha, but he might have been, because there was something very important for me to learn in that. But I don't know. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is what happened in my mind, in my heart. Yeah.